Look, I need to tell you this, while I still remember how to form coherent thoughts, while I still know what's real and what's something else. My name's Danny Reeves. I was a radio engineer for a telecom company in Nevada, and 3 weeks ago, I made the mistake of investigating something I should have left alone. This story starts with a dead frequency. For those of you who don't know radio, here's the deal. Frequencies are valuable real estate. Companies buy them, lease them, fight over them in court. When a frequency goes dead, when nobody's broadcasting on it anymore, it gets auctioned off, repurposed, or just sits there silent until someone claims it. But 157.450 MHz never went silent. I first noticed it during a routine sweep. I was checking signal interference in the Vegas area, making sure our towers weren't getting crosstalk from other broadcasters. Standard, boring work. But when I passed through 157.450, I got a hit. Static. Just static. That shouldn't have been weird. But here's the thing, that frequency was listed as abandoned since 1987. 36 years of nobody using it. No license holder on record. The FCC database showed it as decommissioned. No active broadcaster. Yet something was transmitting. I ran the trace. The signal originated from a tower out in the desert, about 40 miles northwest of Vegas. According to our records, that tower was decommissioned in '89, 2 years after the frequency went dead. It was supposed to be powered down, stripped of equipment, left to rust, but it was broadcasting 24/7. Nothing but static on a dead frequency. I should have reported it and moved on. Should have let some other tech deal with it. But I was bored, and honestly, I was curious. Plus, our company was about to do a major equipment audit. If there was active gear out there that wasn't in our inventory, I needed to document it. So on a Tuesday morning, I loaded up my truck with testing equipment and drove out into the desert. The tower was exactly where the coordinates said it would be. Middle of nowhere, surrounded by scrub brush and heat shimmer. It was one of those old lattice towers, maybe 200 feet tall, red and white paint faded to pink and gray. No fence around it anymore, just the concrete foundation and a small equipment shed at the base. The whole place had this abandoned vibe, like the world had forgotten it existed. I parked and grabbed my gear. The sun was brutal, pushing 105 degrees easy. The only sound was wind whistling through the tower structure and the crunch of my boots on gravel. The equipment shed door was padlocked, but the lock was so rusted it broke off with one hard yank. Inside was exactly what you'd expect from a decommissioned site. Empty rack mounts, stripped cables, a thick layer of dust on everything, except for one thing. In the corner, there was a transmitter. An old one, probably from the '80s, based on the analog dials and vacuum tubes, and it was running. Warm to the touch, LED indicators glowing, cooling fans humming. Someone had power running to this thing, in a shed that was supposed to be dead and abandoned for 3 decades. I checked the circuit breaker panel. Sure enough, the main line was hot. Traced the cable outside and found it ran underground, probably tapping into some old grid connection that never got shut off. Whoever set this up had made sure it would keep running. But why? What was the point of broadcasting static on a dead frequency in the middle of the desert? I pulled out my spectrum analyzer and did a deep scan of the signal. That's when things got weird. The static wasn't random. It had patterns, repeating sequences buried under the white noise. Not clear enough to be voice or music, but definitely not natural interference either. It was like ... data, encrypted or corrupted, but structured. I recorded a sample and checked the transmitter logs, old mechanical counters that tracked transmission time. According to the counter, this thing had been broadcasting continuously for 13,149 days. I did the math. That was 36 years. Since 1987. This transmitter had been running non-stop since the frequency was supposedly abandoned. My phone buzzed. Text from my supervisor. Where are you? Need you back for the 2 p.m. meeting. I snapped some photos of the equipment, made notes, and decided I'd come back with proper documentation tools. As I was leaving the shed, I noticed something I'd missed before. Scratched into the metal doorframe, barely visible. Do not stop the signal. The letters were crude, carved deep like someone had used a screwdriver or knife. Below it, it's listening. I stood there for a solid minute, staring at those words. Then I heard something that made my blood go cold. A voice, coming from inside the shed, not from the transmitter, from somewhere else. A woman's voice, faint and distorted, like it was coming through a bad phone connection. Can anyone hear me? I spun around. The shed was empty except for the equipment. Please, if anyone can hear this. It was coming from my spectrum analyzer, the device I'd used to record the signal sample. The speaker was playing back something that definitely wasn't there when I recorded it. They won't let us stop. We have to keep broadcasting or static. Then nothing. I grabbed the analyzer, checked the recording. When I played it back, there was no voice, just the static pattern I'd originally captured. But I'd heard it, clear as day. I got in my truck and drove back to Vegas way faster than I should have. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I pulled up everything I could find on that tower. Property records, FCC filings, old phone books, anything that might tell me who built it and why. Turns out, the tower was originally constructed in 1983 by a company called Resonance Communications. They held the license for 157.450 MHz and used it for some kind of private network. The company dissolved in 1987. No explanation, no bankruptcy filing, just gone. The frequency went dark. The tower was abandoned and nobody claimed the assets. I dug deeper, found a news article from the Las Vegas Sun, dated October 1987. Search called off for missing Resonance employees. For people, 2 engineers, a technician, and the company's CEO. They'd all disappeared on the same night, October 23, 1987. Their cars were found in the Resonance office parking lot. No signs of foul play, no ransom demands, nothing. They just vanished. The last known activity, they'd all signed into the Desert Tower site for emergency maintenance at 11:47 p.m. Nobody ever saw them again. I found a photo attached to the article, black and white, grainy. It showed 3 people standing in front of that same equipment shed. I recognized the tower structure behind them. The woman on the left wore glasses and had her hair in a bun. She was smiling, but there was something off about the photo. Like it was slightly out of focus, even though everything else was sharp. I zoomed in on her face, and I swear to God, I recognized her. That was the voice from the analyzer. I couldn't explain how I knew, but I knew. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Static, the same static from the tower frequency. Then that woman's voice, clearer now. You shouldn't have come to the tower. Now it knows you're listening. Who is this? I demanded. My name was Sarah. I was the lead engineer. We tried to shut it down. We failed. Shut what down? The experiment. We didn't know what we were building. They told us it was just a relay tower, but the frequency was wrong. It opened something, and now we have to keep broadcasting or it comes through fully. What comes through? Static surge then. You have to go back. You have to make sure the transmitter never stops. If the signal dies, if the frequency goes silent, it will use the gap. It will. The line went dead. I sat there shaking. This was insane. This was some elaborate prank, or I was having a breakdown, or my computer pinged. New email, from an address that was just random numbers and letters. Subject line, it's already listening, no message body. Just an attachment, a video file. I knew I shouldn't open it. Every instinct screamed at me not to, but I did anyway. The video was surveillance footage, grainy, time-stamped, October 23rd, 1987, 11:53 p.m. It showed the interior of the equipment shed, the same shed I'd been in that morning. 4 people were there. They were arguing, pointing at the transmitter. I couldn't hear audio, but their body language screamed panic. Then, one of them, a man in a resonance jacket, reached for the transmitter's power switch. The moment his hand touched it, the camera feed distorted. Heavy static. When it cleared 3 seconds later, the shed was empty. Not just the people. All 4 of them were gone. But their shadows were still there, frozen on the walls and floor like someone had spray-painted their silhouettes. The timestamp continued running. 11:54 p.m. 11:55 p.m. Nothing moved. Just those shadows, permanently burned into the concrete and metal. Then, at 11:58 p.m., one of the shadows moved. It peeled off the wall like a piece of paper, 3-dimensional but wrong, and walked toward the camera. As it got closer, I could see it had no features, just a human-shaped void. The video ended. I slammed my laptop shut and backed away from it like it might explode. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. My phone rang again, same unknown number. I didn't want to answer, but my hand moved on its own, like something else was controlling it. "Danny," it was Sarah's voice again. "You have to understand, the frequency isn't just a radio signal, it's a barrier. We built it by accident, and when we tried to shut it down, we became part of it. We're trapped in the transmission, broadcasting forever, keeping it contained, keeping what contained. The gap, the space between signals. There are things that exist in radio silence, Danny, things that move through dead air. The only reason they can't reach your world is because we're filling the frequency. We're the static, we're the wall. This is crazy. You felt it when you were at the tower, didn't you? When you heard my voice. That was it touching your mind. It knows you now. It knows you exist. And if the signal ever stops..." I heard something in the background of the call, not static, something else. A sound like breathing, but electronic, artificial. "Don't go back to the tower," Sarah said, her voice urgent now. "Don't try to help us. Just make sure nobody ever shuts down the transmitter, please. If that frequency goes silent, even for a second..." The call dropped. I sat there in my apartment, lights on, every rational part of my brain screaming that this was a hoax. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, not through my windows or my phone, through something else, through the empty spaces between radio waves. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, I called in sick. Then I drove back out to the tower. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I thought if I saw it in daylight, it would make sense. Maybe I thought I could find evidence this was all fake. The shed looked the same. Dusty, abandoned, except for that one running transmitter. But something was different. There were more messages scratched into the walls. Fresh ones. "Don't stop, it's in the silence, we're still here, help us." The last one made me freeze. "Danny, leave now, my name." Scratched into the metal, the letters still shiny like they'd been carved minutes ago. I ran to my truck, heart pounding. But before I could start the engine, I heard it. That breathing sound from the phone call, coming from everywhere and nowhere. And then I saw it. Standing next to the tower, a shadow, human-shaped but flat, like it only existed in 2 dimensions. It wasn't cast by anything. It was just there. Impossible. Wrong. It turned toward me, and I realized it had my face. Not my shadow, my face. Wearing my expression, my features, but hollow, empty. It raised one hand and pointed at the shed, at the transmitter. Then it spoke, and its voice was mine. "Keep it running, or I'll take your place." I peeled out of there so fast, I almost flipped the truck. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've quit my job. I check on the tower every 3 days, making sure the transmitter's still running. I've set up solar panels and battery backups. I've filed fake maintenance reports to keep the property off demolition lists, because I know what happens if that signal stops. I still get calls from Sarah, from the others. They tell me about the thing that lives in the dead air, how it's patient, how it's been waiting since before radio was invented, trapped in the silence between frequencies. They tell me they can feel it pressing against the signal, trying to find a way through, testing the barrier, looking for gaps. And sometimes, late at night, when I'm checking the tower, I see more shadows, dozens of them now, standing around the perimeter, just watching, waiting. They all have faces I recognize, my friends, my family, people I've never met but somehow know. And I understand now, they're not threats, they're warnings. They're showing me who it will take if the frequency ever goes dark. Last week, I got a letter from the FCC. They're reclaiming unused frequencies for 5G expansion. 157.450 MHz is on the list for decommissioning. They're resending a team out next month to verify it, inactive, and shut down any remaining equipment. I've tried to stop it, filed appeals, made up technical reasons why the frequency needs to stay active, but they're not listening. So I'm telling you this story, getting it out there before it's too late. If you're reading this and you work for the FCC or any telecom company, or hell, even if you're just someone with a radio scanner listen to 157.450 MHz, you'll hear the static. You'll hear Sarah and the others trapped in the transmission, holding back something that shouldn't exist. And whatever you do, don't shut it down, because there are things that live in radio silence, things that move through dead air. And the only reason they not in your world right now is because people sacrificed themselves to become a permanent broadcaster. They're the static, they're the barrier. And if that signal stops, I've heard what comes through the gaps. I've seen its shadows. And trust me when I tell you, you don't want it to arrive. The tower keeps emitting signals from a dead frequency because the alternative is so much worse than you can imagine. Keep the signal alive. Keep them broadcasting. Because the moment that frequency goes silent, we all become shadows on the wall. I'm posting this from the tower right now. It's 11:47 p.m., October 23rd, the same date and time they disappeared. The FCC team arrives in 6 days, and my shadow just walked away from my body. It's standing by the transmitter looking at me, smiling with my face. I think I understand now. I think I know how this ends. If you're reading this after November 1st, and 157.450 MHz is still broadcasting, don't try to find me. I'll be in the static, keeping you safe.